Welcome to CARDESIGN.ACADEMY and the continuation of the SL Coupe interior. In the last couple of videos, I sketched out this interior theme just using the ink brush, just to get an idea of the interior environment and proportion and scale of things. And then I went into the steering wheel and built a really cool steering wheel in Sub D. I'll probably continue to evolve this steering wheel with additional detail, but just to get this idea of this fairly rounded shape, but flattened at the top and bottom with a central display that houses all of the essential driver information. And then today I'm going to get into the seating, and as you can see, there's really two zones to this vehicle. So I have, if I turn on the occupants, there's really two zones to this thing. There's the driving zone, which is very driver focused and keeps the driver centered and in control. And then I have this central rear occupant who's in this very limousine-like VIP experience with this very wide single rear seat, this little folding table, and the idea that I'm having is that the driver and front occupant could actually disappear, seats fold away, and the rear occupant becomes the sole operator of the vehicle in an autonomous fashion. So I have two kinds of seats. I have a very driver-oriented seat, and then I have a very wide, comfortable back seat. So today I'm going to get into seating. We're going to be talking about seats, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to very quickly build seats in Sub D. I'm going to start a new layer called Seats. And I'm also going to, so I'm going to start with the rear occupant only. So I'm going to duplicate the rear occupant, put him in the rear seat, put him back, and turn off the rest of the occupants. Because what we're going to do is we're going to actually build both seats in the central position because it's a mirrored object. So with that, I'm also gonna select kind of a light sketch material. We'll probably play around with colors and materials later, but for the sake of being able to see everything, and I'm also gonna switch environments so we're going to switch environments so we can see a little bit better what's going on without that distracting background. Okay. So so basically with Sub D, I like to usually start with the profile of the seat, the centerline profile. So I'm going to go with a big wide Sub D band here. And just sort of follow the profile. I'm going to grab the entire center line and snap it to the mirror plane, so it's fully welded at the center, and then I'm just going to bring the sides out like this. So I am going to take that. I think I am going to just get rid of the occupant for now. Actually, no. I'm going to get rid of the occupant because we can always turn on the occupants later. So so as you can see, I'm going to turn it to polygon view, so just so I can get all the polygons kind of in the right place relative to the sketch. You can see generally where I'm heading. And then from there, I just start to extrude out. The essential shapes and forms. I'm going to make this seat extra wide. Again, luxury seats definitely want to err on being wide. Just comfortable, easy to sit in. Got my seat pan a little bit lower than it needs to be. You can see as I'm doing this, I'm checking my planes my planar forms to make sure there's no like twisting or turning, or at least very little twisting or turning. Because once I start to add additional edge loops to control the shape, it's going to it's going to cause the it'll just allow all of the shapes and forms to work together really well. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take I'm going to auto select edge loops, and I'm just going to start adding thickness, just snapping everything to the center plane. So this is going to be a very, very throne-like, very comfortable back seat. I still got to close out bottom here, and I think that's everything. So if I turn on smooth view, you can see it's quite an amorphous shape. But as we add more edge loops, it'll begin to have more definition. So I'm gonna save what I have here. So let's go back to edit mode, and let's check it out in smooth view again. So once I start adding additional edge loops, we'll start with the outside periphery. We'll add some tension and definition here. As you can see, as I add more points, it begins to take on more precision and definition. I can begin to fine-tune that geometry. So you can see very quickly I've got a fairly complete picture of this very comfortable throne-like back seat. So I'm actually going to name this layer rear seat, because now I want to show you how I go about doing a front seat. This was easy because it's a central position, but let's do front seat. And so this will be a more driver focused seat. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to go back and turn on my occupants. I'm actually going to build this initially in the rear occupant position. And again, I'm going to trace the back of the mannequin. Okay, I'm going to turn it on to polygon view, weld the center line, bring the back out. Okay, now that I have a symmetrical object, I can move this to the driver's position. So now that it's in the driver's position, I can now reference the sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the occupants again. So with a driver focused design, we're going to have this strong side bolster shape. So again, as a sports car, if you're in the driver position, you want to be held in that seat as tightly as possible, but not so tightly that you can't easily exit the vehicle. So I'm just gonna just give a little bit of separation to those bolsters so that the driver can easily enter and exit the vehicle. So you can see that's going to be a very driver focused seat. So again, if I turn on the occupants, Just want to make sure that I give the driver enough hip room and shoulder room, accommodating all of the anatomical needs. I also want to make sure I leave enough room for that second row occupant. So you can see that the side bolster here, I just want to make sure that it's not intruding on the feet of the rear occupant. What's nice is, since even though I've moved the seat to this side position, I still have symmetry. It's still updating in real time. So I usually go in with, when it comes to seats, I usually don't go in with a preconceived idea of a theme of a seat. I really just go after the occupant, and I trace the occupant, and I really try to mold and shape the seat to that occupant. Now in the case of the sports car seat, I want this very, very, very tight fitting tight fitting bolsters, lower back support, neck and head support, so that the driver can really focus on driving. When it comes to a rear passenger, it's all about comfort. So the seats can be wider, lower bolsters, more accessible. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the occupants again. Now that I have the seat where I want it. And now I can begin to give the rear seat some thickness. I'm just closing out the back side. This seat's going to have a very, very thin profile to it. It's all about space efficiency. Maximum comfort using the latest lightweight seating technologies. This would probably be a molded carbon fiber bucket with minimal upholstery. Whereas the rear seat is the more luxury-oriented seat is probably going to be all about comfort. It'll be a lot more comfortably bolstered, padded. So let's see, if I turn that on, you can see it's a very soft shape. So if I start to add additional edge loops, very quickly takes on a sense of tension. So later, I will begin to add more details to the seats. But it's important to get the sense of scale and position first. So let me go ahead and bring back the rear seat. So as you can see now, the rear seat and the driver's seat are kind of crashing into each other. So I'm going to have to do some work to get these working better together. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my occupants back in. And I'm just going to see where my driver is. So it looks like I can bring some of this geometry forward a little bit on the driver's seat. And then on the rear seat, to bring it back a little bit. In fact, what I might do is just looks like the whole seat could come back just a little bit. So now the seats are they're not touching each other, but they're actually talking to each other. I might even take this one back just a little bit so there's a nice relationship between those. So now I can turn off my occupants and just have a little bit of editing to do. Since I made some fairly drastic moves there, I'm just going to do a little bit of editing to get everything kind of working again. So eventually I'm going to add a lot more detail in terms of stitching and padding and things like that. But so you can see that there's a real contrast between the driver focused seat and the sort of accommodating rear passenger seat. So I just gave the seats a kind of a deep red color because I want that to be the accent color of the interior. It's kind of a classic Mercedes SL color scheme, the sort of red on black. So I wanted to show you another way of doing the driver's seat. So basically, for this driver's seat, I started it in the center position, and then I shifted it to the right and built it from there. But I want to do a little bit of an alternative seat design, and I want to show you a little bit different way of doing it. So I want to do something that's a little bit closer to the sketch, where it's got this kind of main bucket here, and the separation of the bottom and the back are a little bit more up high in the lumbar area. So what I'm going to do is basically trace the bucket in its position, and you can see it's being mirrored all the way over in the driver's seat area. And what I'm going to do is just sort of model half of the bucket. I'm going to go into polyview so you can see what's going on here. And then go ahead and build out the sides. So I'm just going to see what I have in polyview. So that's starting to look a little bit more like the intention of the original sketch. So now that I've kind of established the basic shape of the seat according to the original sketch, what I'm going to do now is move all of these points. And I have to do this in edit mode because I'm moving the points, not just the object, but I'm just moving them all towards the center position. As you can see, as they approach the mirror plane, everything snaps to the mirror plane. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Turn on all the edit points. Everything snaps to the mirror plane. Now I can take these objects, move them back to the side position, and it'll continue to be edited as a symmetrical shape. But at least now I have something that's a little more representative of the original sketch. So from there, I can go in and add, well, first of all, I'm going to turn on my occupant again, just make sure that I'm hitting all the ergonomic targets. So back here, this whole seat back could come rearward. Let's lock the occupants. So we can bring the seat back rearward. Bring the seat bottom rearward as well. Maybe add some additional geometry. Get the bottom of the seat down where it needs to be. Make sure that we're not intruding too much on the rear occupant. So they're the VIP. So you can see the side of the bucket has this very, very level quality to it. Just adds a bit of premiumness. And then back here, I think we're doing pretty well on the ergonomics. Just maybe bring the headrest forward a little bit. Make sure that our seat is centered well on the occupant. What I may have to do is actually shift the occupant outboard just a little bit. Which wouldn't hurt anything. Let's see, our side bolsters need to come out just a little bit. So now I can go in, I can turn off the occupants, I can turn off the interior tub, turn off the sketch, and I can begin to add some thickness. Just making sure we're not crashing anywhere. I can start to add some tension. So I'm actually thinking that this seat has a much better visual connection with the rear seat. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to add thickness to the upper section. So there are a couple of different ways that you can approach designing seats. And as you can see, very quickly you can have a very comprehensive, very realistic seat. And as soon as I start adding layering of materials, stitching details, it's going to look very, very compelling. So that's the demo on seats. And thanks for watching CARDESIGN.ACADEMY.